Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Unshackled Moms Alliance. I am so excited about our episode today. I know I say that every week, but I just am so grateful that all the people that I get to talk to. So I am definitely one that likes that whole connection between emotions and things that are happening and your actual physical body. It just is so fascinating. So today we're going to continue our conversation with Theresa. If you missed the first one, you definitely want to go back and listen to that, and it's going to get the goods on that. Today we're going to talk about the nervous system, and so let's get to it. Welcome back, Theresa.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh, we're so happy to have you. So let's talk a little bit about dysregulation first. So a lot of women hear like it's that is a common term, right? So they hear that around a lot. What exactly does that mean? And what does it mean just on mom terms? What does it mean to a mom? What does it mean technically? And then what does it mean to a mom?
Yeah. So the nervous system has a few different branches, but the simple version is you have your central nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord, and it's essentially the command center. So if I were to go to grab like a hot pan, the central nervous system is the thing that says to reach out. Then you have the peripheral nervous system, which fires back like, "Hey, this pan is hot," and so you drop it. The peripheral nervous system is broken down into two main sections. You have your somatic side, which handles the things you choose to do, like walking and talking. And then you have the autonomic side, which handles pretty much everything else that your body does automatically: your heartbeat, your breathing, digestion, your blood pressure, temperature regulation, things like that. It's all the behind the scenes stuff that you don't really have to think about. Within the autonomic system, you have three branches. You have your sympathetic, which is your gas pedal. This is going to be your fight or flight. You have your parasympathetic, which is essentially the brake, and then you have your rest, or I'm sorry, which is also your rest and digest. And then you have your enteric nervous system, which is a huge network of neurons that are inside of your gut. So, when we're talking about dysregulation, we're really talking about too much time in that sympathetic sort of gas pedal mode, or dropping down into a shutdown state when things feel kind of overwhelming. So, in the polyvagal theory, these states are part of your body's sort of built-in threat detection system. Your nervous system is constantly shifting between connection, protection, or shutdown, depending on how safe you feel in the moment. And most people know fight or flight, but there are actually four survival responses. You've got fight, flight, freeze, and you've got fawn. And fight is going to look like snapping at your kids because they spilled cereal, or getting irritated with your partner because they had the audacity to ask you about the laundry when you were already kind of stressed out. um,
Yeah.
Freeze is going to sound like something like, I can't handle this, I need to leave the room before I just explode. I'm sorry, that's flight. Sounds like I can't handle this. And then freeze is going to be like numbing out. You're scrolling your phone, stuck on the couch, which is where I tend to live my time when I'm in dysregulation. And then we have fawn, which is sort of people pleasing. It's avoiding conflict by saying yes when you don't really want to, just because it feels safer. And when you're stuck in these states, the body reroutes energy towards survival instead of your everyday life. Digestion slows down or it speeds up. Anxiety ramps up, your patience thins, and your brain kind of feels foggy or frozen. And it's not a broken state, but it's your body's way of just protecting you. So,
Yeah. That makes so much sense. So I was in a couple weeks, we're gonna have a woman that Sandra, who's gonna come on and talk about EMDR and that, that piece. So,
yes.
so good on that. But
Yes.
we were talking about how, our trauma from when we were a kid often plays out in our conversations with our kids.
Hmm.
So, it can be a smell, it can be a certain way that your child talks to you, and then all of a sudden you just revert back to whatever it was that back in that time, right?
Yeah.
And then the fight, flight, or freeze or fawn kicks
Mhm.
in. So can you talk a little bit about that relationship and what happens in your body? And then like why does that happen?
So, really, it's it's fascinating. Okay, so when we experience a trauma, and I don't want to go too much into it because I want everyone to watch that episode as well, because EMDR literally changed my life. So I love that so much. But
Yeah.
when we experience a trauma, essentially what happens is that will get stuck inside of our system, and there will be, your sense of smell is a really strong memory connector. Things like that will trigger those emotional responses and those memories, and you'll essentially, like you said, you'll relive that experience. So while it's not happening to you in the exact moment, it is, we relive that. They've done studies on PTSD survivors, and when they are in, um, when they do their brain scans and they put them in and they ask them questions about their trauma, they will actually, their brain essentially goes back directly into that trauma. It's really fascinating the way that our brains work.
Yeah. And I think, as moms, we don't always remember
Uh-huh.
exactly what that trigger is.
That's
Like,
right.
I will say, for example, my youngest and I, like, both of my kids are in their 20s now, but my youngest can, when we're having a discussion, he can talk to me in a certain tone and automatically I just go back and and I find myself responding in a tone that is not appropriate. Not that I'm
Yes.
yelling, but, like, I start immediately
You
being in defense mode, and
Yeah,
I
you go
don't
into
know
reaction
if
instead of yeah.
yeah, and later I can analyze it and, like, break it down in my head and go, "Okay, this is probably why that happened, and, we need to rework that." But in the moment, I just am like firing right back. "Do not talk to me like that. I will come at you." And not even disrespectfully. He's not even necessarily talking to me disrespectfully.
Right.
It just is a certain tone or certain
Mhm.
words, and I just fly off.
Yep. I'm the same way, and I'll think, I split custody with my kids, so, like, they'll be gone for 2 weeks, and then I'll get them back, and I'll think that I've made all this progress, I'm just like, "I'm such a great mom, I'm such a great," I'm so patient, and I'm so, and then they'll do something like that, it's that tone, and every mom knows that tone that you're talking about. It's just like,
Yeah.
"Excuse me, who do you think you are?" And especially as they get older, and no matter how much self-work you do, I mean, I'm sure that there are some moms who are, cool as a cucumber all the time, but
Right.
we all have our
Well, and it
moments.
doesn't even have to be like if you put it in the categories that you said, right? So it doesn't even have to be like, I fly off the handle, we escalate, and it goes like this, and it is not good, and we're working on that. However, I know that, like, say the fawn is like, "Okay, yeah, whatever you have to say,"
Mhm,
right? Like, "Whatever, okay." I just wanna get myself out of the situation, or freeze as you just like, boop, right? And
mhm.
your kid's coming at you, and you just like, "I cannot deal with this," flight out of here. I'm going to go to my own room, right?
Bye.
Mom's putting herself in timeout. See ya, right? And
Well, and it's
so, like,
sometimes we
I,
can use that, like, we can recognize, "Hey, I'm getting overstimulated, I need to step away," and that's not flight, that is proper emotional
yeah,
control. So there,
yeah,
there is
there's
a
definitely a difference. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. But if you're in the moment and your whole thing is, I gotta get out of here, gotta get out of here, gotta get out of here,
yeah,
that's a whole different, yeah. But, so I think it's so important that moms recognize that in themselves.
mhm,
You know what? It's okay.
yes,
Caleb and I have been working on it for probably 10 years, and we are way better than we were, and it will get better. And I
for
just have
sure.
to, like, in the moment, know that, forgive myself and, like, move on, which I
Yeah.
think that because mom guilt is so real, right? I hear moms all the time, especially moms of teenagers who are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna send
Uh-huh,
my kid into therapy forever because I responded this way," or
yep,
I'm kicking myself because I just let him walk all over me.
yep,
And when we come together and just recognize that, you know what? It is a response from
mhm,
whatever it doesn't even if you have the best of childhood, right?
mhm.
There can be something in there that like triggers that instantly and you may or may not know about it.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have a challenging childhood, but I sure do have my own, experiences with stress responses and things. And I think that the most important thing for us as moms to not necessarily rid us of the mom guilt, because I don't actually know that that's entirely possible, of course, is to give ourselves grace. But even more than that is to, once everything is kind of calmed down, go back to the kid and be like, "Hey, listen, like, I recognize that the way that I handled that was probably not great. I'm
Yep.
sorry. Maybe I could have done it differently." And really, it's like, I have a very, not too honest, but I have a pretty honest relationship with my eldest. He just turned 15, and so it's like, he needs to realize that I'm trying my best, and I do recognize that I make mistakes, but
Yep.
when you take responsibility and accountability for the way that you're behaving, that's what's going to teach them how to do the same thing when they're older, so that they don't just keep suppressing it and burying it and creating their own trauma. Because, yes, everybody grows up with trauma because, hey, our parents didn't know what they were doing either. But
Right.
if we have the self awareness and the capacity to recognize that, speak to it, and apologize when we need to, or even say like, "Hey, I gave in here and I shouldn't have, and I know that I shouldn't have. Please work with me so that
Mhm.
it's just having open communication with your kids is such a valuable thing that I've taken for granted, but it's really important.
Yeah, restitution, I think, is one of the number one effective tools for
Mhm,
your kids,
for
whether
sure.
they're 3 or they're 13,
Yep.
or older, right? Because we are human
Mhm,
and we are gonna mess up. And so, it's that going back, like, not only are you modeling great behavior, but
mhm,
I think that you are preventing some trauma in your own kiddos, like you said.
for sure.
And I think it just when you go in and you have, okay, this huge eruption, and then you go back in and you calm things down, it's like
Mhm.
you just like I think you smooth it does amazing things to your physical body.
Yeah, for sure.
Not only does it calm them down, but it like calms your nerves down. It
Mhm.
helps, the brain not be as rewired into funky things, right?
Right.
Because when there's a trauma, now, correct me if I'm wrong, but like it's my understanding that when there's a trauma, you have a neuron that goes together like this, right? And
Mhm,
then when you have a trauma, it's like they splay like this.
mhm.
And then the impulse can't go from one to the other. And it's
Right.
only when you calm down and you reconnect those that the impulse is able to, go through.
Yep.
Can you
And then
explain a little bit about that?
well, so I'm not a neuroscientist, unfortunately. I kind of wish I could go back to
Right.
school for it, but yeah, there is a huge factor of bringing yourself back down into a normal space because what happens is if you get yourself stuck in a constant trauma response and then they splay, you can actually create new neural pathways that are incongruent and go the wrong way.
Yep.
Um, and so instead of this, I love your hand motions for that. Instead of this, where they just sort of flow together, it's like this, and then maybe like they'll cross like this, or they'll go over here, or they'll go all the way over here, and so it's just having the opportunity to bring everything back down. And so much of that, I was always raised with this mindset of like think positive, like you're if you're having a panic attack or something like that, just think better, don't but it's not our brains as much as it is our bodies have such a huge function of the way that everything works, and our brain actually receives more information from our bodies than it sends out when it comes to things like safety and our nervous system and regulating and things.
Yeah. Well, our brain has to rely on all those different pieces, right?
Right.
So, like, has to rely on the hand to touch something that's like, oh my gosh, it's hot, right? It,
Right.
like, constantly is receiving that, impulse.
Yep.
So, let's talk a little bit. So, we talked last time a little bit about the gut and the brain connection, but let's go a little deeper. So, then
Okay.
how does the health of our gut directly affect our nervous system and our ability to calm and stay safe in our own bodies?
Yeah. So I mentioned the enteric nervous system earlier. It's the pathways inside our gut, the neurons that fire. We actually have just millions of them just lining the gut, and they communicate with the brain primarily through our vagus nerve.
Hmm.
70 to 90% of our serotonin actually is produced in the gut. It's not in the brain. So serotonin is one of our happy chemicals, as I'm sure you know, but it's also responsible for things like mood stability, feeling calm, emotional flexibility, and like how well you sleep. So, your gut bacteria, your gut lining, and the inflammatory state of your gut, they all have a huge impact on how much serotonin actually gets produced and how well that signal gets sent. So, if your gut's inflamed or irritated, the serotonin production is going to drop. Communication is going to get fuzzy, and instead of your nervous system saying like, "Hey, we're good," it says, "I don't know, something feels wrong." And
Yeah.
so you can be sitting in like a totally peaceful room drinking tea, the kids are quiet, the house is calm, and everything is fine on the outside, but on the inside you're still getting warning bells from your gut.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that that kinda goes back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, right? So, you have the eruption with your child, he goes back in, and even if the house is calm and quiet, like,
Mm,
his whole system is all dysregulated, or
mhm.
her whole system is totally dysregulated, and so then when you come in and you apologize and you have that, deep conversation, then it just, like, right,
Yep.
just debriefs your whole system. gut's not as inflamed, the vagal nerve is, like, receiving messages now.
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
that coming back is so valuable and so important.
yeah, which is a good segue into the next question, which is so you describe survival mode as being stuck on a high alert state where everything feels urgent or overwhelming. How can gut issues usually keep somebody trapped in that place even when they're trying to slow down or rest?
Yeah. So when your gut is inflamed or if it's irritated, your brain doesn't necessarily know where the distress is coming from. Like it could be coming from an outside factor or it can be coming from inside. It doesn't know it's coming from your gut. It just knows that something is off. So it
Mhm.
also, inflammation will also, it'll activate the same pathways in your brain that are involved in anxiety and things like hypervigilance. So if your gut's flaring, your body basically gets confirmation that it should stay on guard. And that's why, again, you can sit down to rest, take a deep breath, light a candle, all of those things and still feel like you just can't properly settle down because the internal environment is sending danger cues. It doesn't matter what your external environment looks like because you're just meh on the
Yeah.
inside. So your body
Yeah.
really needs safety cues inside and out in order to really just let go of that panic response.
So when you calm your body down, does it actually calm your inflamed gut down? Or do you have to like be eating on a regular basis something good? Like what are some things that we can do to make sure our guts are healthy?
Yeah, so really it's going to be different for everybody, right? Because what works for me isn't going to work for you. I think I mentioned on our last podcast. I know somebody who can't eat broccoli, like it makes her super sick, but I can eat broccoli like all day, every day, and be totally fine. Um, so really it's about finding out what causes inflammation in your gut, making sure you're getting probiotics, making sure you're getting fiber, things like that, because you can't just think your gut into submission. Gosh, I wish you could, but you can't just think your gut into submission. You have to actually nourish it and nurture it and give it what it needs to heal. And if you're constantly eating things like highly processed foods or lots of sugar or things that are really acidic, your gut lining, I sort of mentioned the tight junctures in your gut, those will expand and cause even more inflammation, not just in your gut, but in your whole body. And
Yep.
inflammation, no matter where it's from, is going to cause those alarm bells to go off.
Yeah. But at least everything could be healed,
For sure. Yeah, there's
which is
no
nice.
there I guess I shouldn't say there are very few things that cannot be reversed and trained differently. It will take time and it's usually small steps at a time that things can make shifts.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember that. New Year's Eve is coming. You don't have to make an entire life change to make your
That's
body
right.
healthy this year.
Just start with one thing, just one little thing, and that'll be the
Yeah,
plant that'll
exactly.
plant the seed for
Exactly.
you.
Okay, so what are some subtle signs that a mom's body is living in fight or flight? And then what are like some physical symptoms like digestive issues, fatigue, cravings that might be the body's way of saying, you know what, I just don't feel safe.
Yeah, so sympathetic activation, which is that state of just energetic craziness. It's not
Mhm.
always dramatic. Sometimes it is loud and obvious, but most of the time it's just going to show up in these sneaky everyday ways that we typically will just chalk up to normal stress. From a polyvagal standpoint, when you're in a sympathetic activation, your blood flow shifts away from things like your digestion and towards your big muscle groups, which is great if you're actually running from something or, like you hear those stories
Yeah.
about the mom. Sorry, my tea kettle is going off. I don't know if you can hear that. I apologize. I don't know if you've heard those stories about the mom who's able to like lift the car off of the baby, and it's because the muscles are receiving more blood flow and things like that. So again, that's great if you're running from something, but in real life, it's going to look like all of that energy is leaving your digestive system, so you can get constipation, heartburn, or the opposite. Everything can speed up, and none of that's random. It's your body really saying like, I don't feel safe enough to rest and digest right now. So that's that system. There are other subtle signs, things like your jaw clenching, your shoulders being tight, like up, your shoulders are your earrings kind of thing. Your breathing is shallow, primarily in your chest instead of in your diaphragm. That's a big one. A lot of people these days are breathing just into their upper chest and their lungs and not breathing deep into their diaphragm, which is such a huge and very important thing. Like you can breathe into the back of your lungs and that is like a whole game changer, and I actually got lightheaded the first time that I tried it. It was such a
Oh
different
my goodness.
experience for me. So and then, things like being overstimulated. I know that for me, like there will be times when something is going on and, there'll be, sounds or strong smells and bright lights and all of those things will give me this sense of like, oh my gosh, what is going on? And I just can't handle it. So overstimulation, being sort of irrationally angry when someone disturbs you or interrupts you, being like generally and thoroughly exhausted, but when you lay down to bed, you can't sleep. Another one that I've experienced is when you get into the car and you just get tired. So I don't know if you've ever had this happen where you're going and going and going and going and going, and then you sit down in the car and you start driving and you're like, man, I could fall asleep behind this wheel right now. I don't know what's going on. That is actually a sign that you are living in a high stress, like a high state of emotional dysregulation. Another thing can be things like intense sugar or carb cravings because your body wants that quick energy to outrun whatever like tiger that it thinks is coming next. And then there's emotional signs too. So your fuse is shorter, you snap faster, you're irritated for what looks like no reason, but there's a reason. Um, and things like you have trouble finishing tasks because your brain is bouncing from like one thing to another or like in a browser, like with like a browser with like 47 tabs open. And a lot of these signs are so normalized that you almost stop noticing them. You just think you're tired or hormonal or not disciplined enough. But really your nervous system is just it's just trying to keep you alive the best way that it knows how.
Yeah, I thought you brought up a really good point. So, sometimes those things are so subtle, we
Mhm.
just get used to them in our bodies. We don't even pay attention to them anymore. Or we say, "Yeah, I know. I'm, 35 years old and I know that this is part of living," right? As I get tired and I have all those symptoms. But the reality is that if you are taking care of your body physically and you're taking care of your body emotionally and you're taking care of your body food wise, that is not normal.
Right. Yeah, it is the way that we have been conditioned to believe that things are as being okay is such a lie. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that they do is they'll push, pharmaceuticals, which of course have their own side effects. And it's like I don't necessarily need, you know, anxiety medication or antidepressants. Now, some people do. I'm definitely not discounting the fact that sometimes those things are very, very, very necessary, but they are not ever intended to be long term solutions. So if you
Yeah.
find yourself struggling with something like anxiety or depression, there's therapy, there's EMDR. I'm so excited about that one. I can't tell you how excited I am about that one.
Yeah.
It literally it changed my life. So it's that there's that. But um, with personally, I had severe depression. I had social anxiety. Like I couldn't talk to people. I think I mentioned it last time. Like I would avoid play dates. I would not go to school events because I was just so uncomfortable being around people because of what was going on in my mind. And helping your gut, allowing it to create the chemicals that it needs to create in your gut can help your brain do the things that it needs to do too. So it's a huge thing.
Yeah, I think that's so good. Okay, so I keep hearing about this vagus nerve, how it connects our gut and brain. Then can you explain a little bit more? You touched a little bit on it, but can you explain a little bit more about what it does and how supporting that nerve can help regulate our mood and emotions?
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, so the vagus nerve is essentially the main communication line between your body and your brain. It runs from your brainstem down through your throat, your heart, your lungs, and into your gut. And this is like a common misconception, but 80% of the vagus nerve fibers go from your body to your brain and not the other way around. So a lot of, again, that's the whole like you can't think your way out of it because your sensations, the things that you're feeling, the that's going up to your brain. It's not you can't think it into calmness. So
Mhm.
the I mentioned the polyvagal theory, I think a couple of times earlier, and that's sort of my favorite way to explain what the vagus nerve does. It's essentially
Yeah.
your internal watchdog, and its entire job is to constantly scan the internal and external environment for signs of danger or safety. And when your watchdog senses safety, your body shifts into that calm, grounded space where you feel patient and connected and like you can breathe. And this is called the ventral vagal state. Your digestion works, your heart rate is slow, your muscles soften, and you can respond instead of reacting. But if your watchdog picks up like a stress signal, no matter where it comes from, whether it's internal or external, it starts barking. And when it barks, your nervous system shifts into that sympathetic activation, which is again your fight or flight. And you'll feel anxious, overstimulated, irritable, and jumpy. And if you stay in fight or flight too long, or if you're already in a dysregulated state, and you can shift even farther down into what's called the dorsal vagal state, which is a deeper protective mode. And that's your freeze fawn kind of thing, but it's also like a state of complete shutdown. You're feeling numb, you're feeling checked out. So when your vagal tone is strong, it helps to quiet that watchdog. It helps, it tells your brain that everything is okay and you can relax. But when it's overwhelmed or underactive, it's like your watchdog is barking at like every leaf that goes by, or there's a huge tornado coming by and you're just like, there's a tornado, and you just like cannot bring yourself to care.
Yeah.
So we can help to tone our vagus nerve by doing things like splashing cold water on your face or dunking your face in an ice bath. It's like I do that first thing every single morning, and then when I brush my teeth, I'll gargle. So gargling and humming is going to help to reactivate that vagus nerve in the back because it kind of goes through your back of your throat. Um, Slow
Great
breathe.
tips.
Yeah. Slow breathing with the exhales that are longer than your inhales. So like 4-6 breathing, or if you can go longer than that, 4-8 breathing. But it's just that exhaling longer puts your body, think about when you're hyperventilating, you're not going to be exhaling, you're going to be inhaling more. But if you force yourself to exhale, or you can also do like the sigh breaths where you just like push everything out as hard as you can. All of those things are going to send the body messages that it's safe.
That is so fascinating. Do you think okay, so I just heard and not that you have to speak to this specifically, but I just think it's a good building point. So I heard on a podcast the other day that those people who are overweight, their vagus nerve doesn't work as well because they have spent because you are if you're overweight, other than medical reasons and those good things, but like, if you're overweight because you overeat or you use food for compensation, that you have ignored that response for so long that it doesn't work as well because,
Sure.
you're like, "You're not listening," right? Do you I mean, we don't necessarily have to talk about the overweight piece because I know that that's not necessarily your specialty, but do you think that if there are things in your life like that where you're just ignoring that it kinda
Mhm.
weakens that brain, vagal nerve connectivity?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything that you do that disregards your body's natural processes is going to weaken that muscle, so to speak.
Mhm.
The more we allow ourselves to sit in a sympathetic reaction, the stronger our sympathetic reaction is going to be. The more on alert that guard dog is going to be. It's going to see danger at every corner. Whereas if we constantly train ourselves to be in a relaxed state, doing things like mindfulness and meditation, or grounding techniques and things of that nature, those will become the stronger muscles. And so, really, it- I spent a lot of time just living in sympathetic activation, dropping down into that dorsal vagal response of just completely numbing out. But I spent a lot of time there. And so that was a really, really strong muscle. It was really easy for me to snap right back into it. Because again, the more, I mean, it's just like going to the gym. The more you work your biceps, if you don't ever work your legs, like your arms are going to be jacked, but your legs are going to be little,
Right.
sticks or whatever. So,
True.
um, yeah, it's all just a matter of what you put your intention towards, and that is the thing that will be the stronger
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, I like that. I think that, right now, so many families are dealing with so much stress having to do whether, you don't have your SNAP benefits or they're back
Mhm.
now, but, like you have that period of time or you're on, forced furlough or like there's a
Yeah.
lot of families that are going through it right now.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get so caught up in where how am I gonna pay my
Yeah.
mortgage? I talked to a mom today and she said, "I've gone 2 months without paying our mortgage, and I don't know what we're gonna do next month." Right? And that brings so much stress.
Yeah.
And mindfulness is not going to pay the mortgage.
Nope.
However, it allows for your whole system to reset and for your vagal nerve to get that whole muscle response to get stronger when you just take a few moments and do some mindfulness some breathing,
Yeah,
some of the other things that you talked about. I think that it's important to remind moms as they're listening that, like, so important because we get so caught up in, oh my gosh, what are we doing? How am I going to take care of my kids? Like, and all those things are, valid, kind of, right? Like, yeah, they're
absolutely.
feelings, so they're valid. But just to take, if we can practice taking just like 1 or 2 times during the day, just practicing the breathing, or, using 5 senses in your room, sitting and just thinking,
Mhm.
okay, what do I see? Name
Yeah,
5 things that I
orienting, yep.
see. Name 5 things that I feel. Name 5 things that I smell, and going through all your senses. You know, Sometimes it's hard because the kids are, like, yelling in the background, but, like, whatever, just take a few minutes and just, ground yourself, reset a little bit, I think is so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, and it's really true. I mean, it's like you said, mindfulness. None of these practices are going to pay your mortgage. They won't. That's not possible. Unless, I mean, I guess unless you do that for a living, which maybe then it will. But it's not. These are not fixes for a stressful life. These are tools that you can use in how to have less of a reaction to the stress in your life.
Yep.
And, it's like you said, orienting in your room, counting the things that are a certain color or smell or all of those things like that is such a wonderful practice that's a really good muscle to build. And it's talk about it a lot. But another one, and you can actually get your kids involved in this one, is the shaking. The song Shake Your Sillies Out. I don't know if you've ever heard that one,
I
but it
have,
is,
but you can
yeah.
explain it, then I like it.
So our our bodies, when we go into a stress reaction, imagine you're getting chased by a tiger, right? Or you're walking down the woods and you hear a snap in the woods and you look over to your right and there's like a bear or a tiger that's coming at you. Your body is going to start running. Well, you're probably going to run theoretically, right? Um, but if the tiger is, you don't know how you're going to pay your mortgage, or your kids are screaming, or you're got into a fight with your husband, or you got into a car accident, like all these things, like that tiger, you can't really run from that. I mean, you can go into a different room, but you can't run from it. But your body still needs to complete that cycle, that stress cycle. You'll see animals, they'll, after they get through a traumatic situation, they'll shake, and we can do the same thing. And it's the process of ridding ourselves of all of that stress energy that gets built up inside of us. So shaking, and again, you get your kids involved, like, hey, we're just gonna go crazy and shake for a few minutes, or dancing too, because it's the same, or marching in place, just something to get that motion accomplished so that you're not
Mhm.
standing there frozen while the tiger is coming at you. You're actually doing something. Your body will recognize that as processing it instead of holding it in.
Yeah, I love that, and that is good for moms who are listening who have little kids, right? Like, you're feeling
Hmm.
you're overwhelming? Okay. Hey, let's all get together, let's march around the house,
Yep.
right? So you're
Yeah.
deregulating yourself, but you're also including your kids, so they're not screaming in the background, but, they're deregulating themselves too.
Yep. Yeah, and that song, "Shake Your Sillies Out," it's shake your sillies out, shake your sillies out, wiggle your rattles away, and then it's like, yawn your sleepies out. Like, there's
Yep.
every portion of that song, if you actually look at it from a scientific basis,
Mm.
it's like, "Oh, you know what? That's actually, like, we should do that, like, every morning when you wake up, you should do what the "Shake Your Sillies Out" song says. Do it with your kids, do it by yourself, do it before bed, just some way to get all of those sensations and emotions out, and kids
Rafi
love
was
it.
onto something, huh?
He really was.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay, um, so are there certain foods that actually help the body feel grounded and safe? And then are there foods that can trigger, like, anxious, wired irritability?
Yeah, so I mean, food is going to play a huge role in nervous system regulation, not just by providing nutrients, which is important, but also because of how it affects your blood sugar, your inflammation, and your digestion. Things like protein, healthy fats, high fiber, minerals, phytonutrients from colorful fruits and vegetables, like those are going to be significantly more grounding to your nervous system, and they're good for your gut. Gut loves those things.
Yep.
It provides it enough food that it can break everything down into how it needs to be. On the flip side, there are foods that can absolutely wreck your gut and make you feel like anxious or wired or out of control. And that's really going to be anything that spikes your blood sugar. So you've got sugary snacks, like ultra processed foods. If you like skip meals and then overeat later, even like artificial coloring, those kinds of things could just put you on this roller coaster.
Mhm.
Blood sugar spike can actually mimic the fight or flight reaction. So your heart rate's going to increase, your thoughts are going to start getting races, you start getting jittery, and then a little later you crash and you feel exhausted, foggy, or emotional. So keeping yourself out of that situation is going to help a lot. Caffeine can do the same thing. I know a lot of us will sit there and we'll drink caffeine or we'll drink coffee before we have breakfast. And so our energy sort of spikes, but then it's just like it pushes you deeper into a sympathetic activation. Your body
Yep.
feels like it's running, even if you're just like running errands. On top of that, we have, if your gut's already inflamed, there are certain foods that can add fuel to the fire, but it's not a one size fits all situation. Again, like we talked about before, like what works for you might not work for me. Like if I have a dairy intolerance and you don't, you can drink, coffee with cream. Whereas if I do, that's going to set me up for failure because it's going to inflame my gut and just make me feel awful.
Yeah.
So like every nervous system is different, every gut is different, and the goal isn't necessarily to create a list of like this food's good and this food's bad because that's not going to jive with everybody. What you really need to do is learn what your body responds to and what makes you feel grounded and what pushes you into that sort of wired state. So I can't give you like a eat this, not that, because it's not that's not what it's about. It's really finding somebody who can help you narrow down what causes your inflammation and what makes it better.
So we're heading into one of the most fun yet stressful times of the entire year, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of times that includes sugar
Lots of food, yeah.
and
Lots of sugar,
lots
yeah.
of sugar, right? And it includes relatives that maybe we don't really want to hang around. Or, whatever that stress is, right?
Sure.
So, what are some things that we can do that can establish, like, I really do want to have my pumpkin pie, but what should I do because I want to be mindful of my nervous system because I know it's going to be like super active and I want to, like, what kind of foods can we eat? Should we start with protein and then work our way up, or what should we do?
My recommendation is pretty much always to start with fiber. I don't, especially during this time of year when you have, I mean, I make mean sweet potato casserole, but it is not healthy by any means. There's like a pound and a half of brown sugar, not literally, but there's a lot of brown sugar in it. So it's not a healthy thing. Sweet potatoes by themselves are pretty good, but when you add all the other things, it's a little bit less.
Hey,
Anyway,
I put
uh,
nuts on top.
yeah, right? Yeah, there you go. Those are healthy fats. But it's so I would say, you always want to start with fiber. So start with your vegetables. So before you go into the dessert, make sure that you get a decent amount of the good stuff. So eat your protein, eat your vegetables. If I don't want to restrict anything for anybody, but make sure that you get a healthy serving of the things that are good for you before you dive into the things that you just want to eat because they're yummy.
Yep.
Um, Another thing that you can do there is you can take digestive enzymes. Those can help you process larger meals. They can also help you digest specific macronutrients and things like that. So, I'll take I've got a couple of different brands that I use personally, depending on what it is that I'm eating. So, if I'm going to like carb load or dairy load or something like that, I'll take a
Yeah.
digestive enzyme, and it doesn't make it entirely better, but it makes it better enough that I'm not miserable for the next 3 or 4 days. I might be miserable for the next 24 hours, but I know what foods do to me, and
Mhm.
I accept that as, it's kind of like a sacrifice. It's that 80-20 rule that I was talking about too, right? If for most of the month or most of the week or most of the day even, I'm eating very responsibly, I'm allowed to indulge here and there. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of the order in which you eat your food. Don't carb load first. Eat the salad or the green beans or whatever it is first, and then go into the protein. And then once you've done all of that, did I talk about last time the sink analogy with the leaves and the sticks and the dirt um, as your digestive system?
I don't know, but maybe somebody isn't gonna listen to that one yet, and so they wanna know, so go ahead and share.
Yeah. So if you think of your digestive system as like a sink, and you take a bunch of sand or mud and you shove that mud into the sink, it's going to clog almost immediately. Whereas if you put some twigs and some sticks, obviously a sink analogy isn't maybe the best because clogs and sticks are still going to, or sticks and leaves are still going to clog the sink, but if you put the leaves and the sticks in and then you pour the mud in, it's going to trickle the mud down and it's not going to clog as solidly. It's really so if you think of your digestive system that way, the the mud or the dirt is going to be like your carbs, the things that just essentially turn sticky. Whereas the leaves and the twigs are going to be your fibers and your proteins, which are going to allow the carbs to sort of trickle through slower. That's not going to cause a blood sugar spike, and it's going to allow your digestion to really handle it better.
I love that. Okay, so Christmas morning, I know I have to go to my parents' house. Aunt Merla is going to be there, and she just like always gets me going. And I just like it just is freaking me out. 2 weeks before Christmas, the kids are like all excited, and it's like overstimulating. And I just feel myself like, "Ah." What are some things maybe that I can eat on the way to my mom's house or on my way to Aunt Merla's house or wherever we're going that maybe will preempt my system to be, because I'm gonna be do my mindfulness things that we talked about over
Mhm.
there. I'm gonna, but is there something that I can eat that will kind of also kind of aid in that piece or not really?
Um, Probably, I don't know about eating. I mean, definitely, you want to eat a small breakfast, something that has fiber that's going to satiate you.
Mhm.
Maybe some
Yep.
healthy fats, like avocado toast or something like that. Something small and light that will just sort of peak up your digestion. But even more than that, I would say the best thing that you can do is drink some water because drinking water does a number of things. Like for one, the coolness of the water, you can kind of focus on that and down regulate your nervous system. But it's also going to fill your stomach so that you're going to be less likely to stress eat later because you're less hungry because you have water in your system. Um, but really, I mean, I don't know that I mean, you can drink tea. There's different teas that you can drink. They're gonna, calm you down a little bit. But I think really, finding food that's gonna calm you is gonna be different for everybody. And like for me, I feel calm when I eat cheese and crackers, and I feel calm when I eat, truffles and bonbons. But those aren't necessarily the things that I would recommend, because while they do make me feel better in the moment, I know that especially if I'm going someplace to eat a lot more food, that is not how I wanna start my day. That is just not how I wanna start. So I would say, do the water, get yourself a light, but, full of fiber breakfast, and
Mhm.
just try to make sure that when you are talking to Aunt Mildred or Mabel or Josephine or whatever her name
Right, yeah,
is,
yeah.
and she starts stressing you out, just breathe. And then don't like heavy sigh in front of her necessarily, because that's gonna cause its
I
own set of problems. But um, just and go into the bathroom and just, oh, this lady's driving me crazy. And
Mm.
then walk out. So just
Yeah,
find little
yeah,
moments throughout the day where you can just bring yourself back down.
yeah, yeah. It's not probably not it might be a little triggering when you're doing, like, smell. Do not count the smell of of her breath or of perfume or whatever that looks like, although, that might make you chuckle, so that might work too, but
Sure.
okay. So, how do gut issues and nervous system imbalance affects sleep and stress recovery? And then how do improving digestion or heating rhythms help us rest more deeply?
Yeah, so when your gut is irritated or inflamed, it throws off the way your body makes serotonin. Now, serotonin is what eventually becomes melatonin, which is one of the hormones that help you to fall asleep and stay asleep. So when the gut isn't happy, usually your sleep's not going to be happy either. That same irritation can bump up your cortisol levels, which keeps you in that kind of like wired but tired state, or it can wake you up in the middle of the night even when you're tired. So your sleep gets lighter, shorter, or more broken. Now, on the flip side, when your digestion is supported and you're eating in steady rhythms and your sleep, I'm sorry, when you're eating in steady rhythms, your sleep is usually going to improve pretty quickly. Late night snacking can actually have a huge negative impact on how you sleep because your body is more focused on digesting the food than allowing your brain to get into its REM cycles. So our bodies really they just love predictability. So regular meals are going to help stabilize our blood sugar, and steady blood sugar is going to help keep your nervous system calm. Also, again, like I said, giving your body time to rest and digest before you go to bed. I
Mhm.
usually try to aim for a minimum of about 2 hours before my last meal or a snack before bedtime, because anything more than that is just going to break me into it. I usually don't sleep well at all on the nights that I don't follow that rule.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay. So, what about for a mom who feels like her nerves are shot?
Hmm.
Kids are going crazy. I'm working 12 hours. I got to go to daycare. Things are all hypered up. I am done. She's tired, jumpy, and always on edge. Where does she start? And what are what's like the first small steps toward rebuilding resilience in her nervous system? We kind of talked a little bit about that already, but
Yeah, I'm happy to reiterate it because I know that repetition is one of the best ways that we learn. So, the
yeah.
first thing that anybody, any mom, anybody at all needs to know is that there's nothing about her and the reaction that she's having that's like broken. This is not something in you that is damaged. This is your body doing exactly what it was designed to do when it feels overwhelmed and unsafe. It's just a protective mechanism. So, step one is really shifting out of that, like, I should be handling this better mindset, and more into my body is talking to me and it's asking for
Mhm.
support. I'm going to support it. I'm not going to shame it. And that shift alone, it just takes so much of the pressure off. And then from there, the next thing is to understand that resilience is not built in the middle of a meltdown. It can't be. It's built
Right,
through
yeah.
these tiny repeatable moments that you practice when you're not overwhelmed. So it's just like training for like a marathon. You don't wait until race day to start running. You build up little by little so that when the stress really hits you, your body it already knows its way back. So the first small step that I would have anybody, but any mom take is just creating one moment of safety for your body each day. Just one. That might be a slow exhale. It might be shaking your body out, just loosening your shoulders, because
Mhm.
so many of us they're up here and we don't even realize it until we take a moment to relax.
Yeah.
Again, this splashing cold water on your face. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It's just got to be something that pulls your body out of sympathetic reaction and into like I'm safe right now.
Yeah. I carry really, really strong mints in my purse,
Yes.
and then I
Yes.
just like put down there, and it helps so
hmm
much. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when if you take a couple of them and you go, and then you're like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
that was really.
So true. I think as you were talking, I think it's also good to remember that our kids are doing the same thing, right?
Hmm.
So when they're dysregulated and like off, one of the things that we can do as a mom is to help them out, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I see you're escalating. Or oh my goodness, I see your feelings are getting big. Let's have a shakedown. Woo,
Yep.
right? Or whatever
And
that looks like for
and
you.
sometimes it
And,
can be as simple as, hey, give me a hug. Like
yep.
my youngest, he was having a whole day, and I said, hey, buddy, come here. And he looked at me like he was going to get in trouble or something. I was like, come here. And he was like, what? And I was like, give me a hug. And when I tell you, his entire body just went.
Yep.
And then he let me hug him, and he just like held on to me. And it was like if I had I mean, and this was after like he had like shouted at me over something stupid. Um, if I had reacted to him with shouting back or some kind of a reaction instead of an acceptance, it would have escalated. It would have made a huge, horrible thing. But instead,
Yep.
I just embraced him and I just let him just be calm and feel my calm. And because our kids are struggling. The world that they're growing up in is so different than what we grew up in.
Yep.
And they don't have any sort of tools or regulation. They're not being taught any of that. I mean, we weren't either, but now we get to learn. But, sharing this with them too, helping them figure out how to down regulate themselves when they need to is going to make a generation of kids that really function a lot better.
Yeah, I agree. And I think sometimes we lose sight that we're raising humans,
Yeah.
right? Like we get in that mindset of I am the mother, these are my children.
You do what I say.
Instead of these are tiny humans that have the exact same emotions, thoughts, feelings that we do. And
Mhm.
we need to be just as accommodating to
Yeah.
them as we're expecting people to be with us when we're in
100%.
that mode. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so before we close, what would you say to the mom who feels fried mentally, emotionally, and physically and doesn't know where to start? What is your message of hope for her today?
Yeah, I mean, again, I just want to reiterate that the first thing that she needs to know is that she is not failing. She's not broken. It is okay to be
Mm,
overwhelmed. We live in this world of Instagram perfection, and those are all lies. Maybe not all of them, but 99% of them are BS. We do not have to be perfect because nobody is perfect. We're all going through the same challenges and same struggles. They just look different. You don't have to push harder, or you don't have to overhaul your entire life to feel better. Healing doesn't have to be big dramatic changes. It just starts with really slowing down. And for a lot of us, the way back to calm doesn't feel familiar. It actually feels kind of scary. And so it's hard for us to even start that journey. And that's not our fault. It's conditioning. It's our body's protection. It's just
yep.
trying to do what it knows how to do. So we
Yeah.
have to really reframe that. So, mama, you're not broken. You're not behind. And oh my gosh, you're allowed to rest. Like, please take a minute, sit down, not because you're so exhausted you can't handle another second, but because you are allowed to. You are a human and your body needs that.
Yep.
So, you can feel like yourself again, even if you don't know who yourself is anymore, you can get back to that person. It just takes one small step at a time.
I love that. I love that. Okay, well, as you already know, I like to end with a little rapid fire. And so be honest with you, I do not have the questions in front of me. We're gonna go like off the cuff, rapid fire. Let's go.
All right.
All right. Martha Stewart or Griswold Christmas decorating?
Oh, I actually don't celebrate Christmas.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well,
I
that
used to.
takes that
I
out.
so I used to, and it would have been more Martha Stewart, very homemade, very DIY, very, rustic. But I haven't celebrated Christmas in about 5 years for a number of reasons, but primarily religious reasons. So,
Love that. Okay. So, I'm gonna shift my mindset then a little bit. So, what is your favorite activity to do this time of year?
nothing. Hibernate. I
I love
really
that too. I think, it's raining or it's cold and just
yeah.
come in, have a nice warm cup of tea, read
Yeah,
your
well,
book or do whatever. Yeah.
where I live, it doesn't really snow. Like, we get 2 or 3 good snows a year, and everything shuts down. So it's kinda
Yep.
perfect because you get to do the sit inside, drink a cup of tea, and read a book, watch a movie, so I love I kinda wish sometimes that I didn't work from home because, everything shuts down. And
Yeah.
I love those sort of, like, those lazy days where it's like, "Oh, darn, everything got canceled because we can't even leave the house." So, I would say my favorite thing to do is just spend time with my loved ones, 100%.
Favorite game that you like to play during this time of year with your kids?
We actually love board games in this house. So I
Mhm.
don't know if you meant board games or video games, but
Yeah, that's
we
exactly
play
right.
we play a lot of board games. I don't know that I have a favorite. My husband introduced me to the game Farkle. It's a dice game. That
Mhm.
one is always fun. But I think that my favorite game, like of all time right now, is this game called Avalon. Have you ever played Mafia?
Yeah.
So Avalon is kind of like Mafia, but it's like King Arthur style. So you have Mordred and you have servants of Arthur, and you have to figure out who the bad guys are and who the good guys
Oh my
are.
goodness, how fun.
It is. We have people over all the time, and we just play that game like on repeat, and it is like everyone's accusing everyone of everything, and it's the most fun ever.
That's awesome. My oldest is very much word games and that kind of
Mhm.
thing. Which kind of runs in my family. Like my grandmother could kick anybody's butt in Scrabble, and my mom for the longest time could kick mine. CJ can kick all of our butts every single
Wow,
time, and
that's
he's not
awesome.
even 30 yet. And we have like I would like to say our vocabulary is, wide, but dang, he kicks it every single time.
That's
And then my
awesome.
youngest is all about he would play a trivia game every single night if I let him.
Those are fun too. We love Settlers of Catan. I don't know if you've
Uh-huh.
ever played that one. It's only 4 players, so unfortunately, we can't always all play because I have a stepson who lives here as well. But that one is we like the strategy games. I think is where we really go in for go ham on the strategy games.
That's all. You know what? I can see that, especially if you have a son who's studying engineering, right,
Yeah.
and has that, that mind. I am more creative and do not have like, I just strategy games are not I am not good at them, and so I don't like to do them because I'm very competitive. Nobody will play Monopoly with me now, but that's okay.
Oh,
That's a whole different story. Anyway, thanks for coming on our show today. I just so appreciate it. And those who are listening know that we're going to talk again in January and talk a little bit about hormones and
mhm.
that whole
So
connection.
excited.
So lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
We'll see you
All
next
right. Until next time, don't forget to hit the subscribe and the like because I know you liked our conversation. Merry Christmas, y'all, those who celebrate. Talk to you soon.